Good day. My name is Joyce Rice, and today we will discuss effective communication for managers through SkillPath training seminars. Now, just to give you a little bit of information about myself, I have about 12 years of experience in relationship management. What that means is I utilize effective communication and relationship building techniques in order to progress in business. And that was particularly in the financial services industry for banking and brokerage, investments, and insurance. Now, in looking at effective communication, we're going to identify several goals. And number one, we're going to clearly define what effective communication is. We're going to also learn what active listening is and how we might use it. And we're going to also discuss key elements of persuasion and negotiations. Now, when you think about communication and you think about how often you communicate, the truth of the matter is we communicate 75% of our waking hours in some way, shape, or form, but primarily verbally. That means we are expressing, sharing, talking to someone about how we feel, what we think, what we want, what we desire, what we need. Okay? Now, when you think about that and you translate that into a management role, it becomes even more critical because the communication that we utilize as managers is extremely purposed, and we have to meet business objectives. Am I right? Correct. Now, keep in mind that as managers, the key to successful communication is 10% of what you say, but it's 90% of how you say it. Okay? So we need to keep in mind our tone, the rate at which we're speaking, okay, the pace, the words that we choose to use to describe or express our feelings, being personal versus professional, things of that nature. How you say things are extremely important. Okay? Now, given the critical duties and responsibilities that you all bear in your individual jobs, I'm sure that I don't have to say how critical communication is and how much of an asset it can be to your jobs. Now, would anybody like to share with the rest of the class, if you could, maybe identify key business relationships that you currently manage on a regular basis? Okay. Your clients, great. Your superiors, of course. Okay. Your wholesalers, operations, logistics, personnel. All of those are key examples of relationships that would need to be managed in order to have successful business. Okay? Now, how might we define when effective communication is in play? Okay? Effective communication is evident in a few examples. Number one, when the message or information that is being shared is defined with the same meaning for both the sender as well as the receiver. Okay? Has anyone ever heard of the term, "Are we on the same page?" That's essentially what it means. Both you, the manager, your staff member, or your internal partner, or your internal customer, or your wholesaler, whomever, you all are actually seeing that communication and defining it and understanding it the same way. That's effective because then you can do what? Reduce mistakes. You can reduce errors in operations and workflow. So this is how we define or identify when effective communication is in play. Okay? So that was the first example, and the second example is noticing that there are fewer misunderstandings, errors in operations and workflow. That was your second example. Now, lastly, the last example that helps to define effective communication is when positive work relationships are evident and they produce better business results. Okay? So when you are effectively communicating and when you're building positive relationships, you're going to ultimately see that your business results are progressing and your projections are being met and your objectives are being met and you're working more efficiently. Okay? Now, moving forward to utilizing and encouraging active listening, does anyone have any questions about how we might define effective communication? Okay, great. Now, active listening reduces misunderstandings and it ensures increased accuracy and productivity. This is why it's important, okay? Because it reduces misunderstandings, it ensures increase in accuracy, and it helps to increase in productivity. Now, can anybody define active listening? Okay, that's a great example. Active listening is actually the process of seeking clarity, okay? It involves paraphrasing, okay? That is something that you can do verbally to induce active listening, which is paraphrasing. Now, what is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is repeating the information that you just heard back to the sender. Now, what does it actually do? It helps to affirm. It helps to affirm that the information that you just received is accurate so that you can be on the same page, right? Now, one of the things that you can do to help create an environment of active listening is to hit the main points, okay? And then skim over the main points, some of the broader points, so that you're not sharing too much detail at one time. So you want to go back and summarize and make sure that your audience is following you. Now, while you're in the process of sharing the main points, make sure that you do not forget about the small, significant details, okay? Those small, significant details are where a lot of your mistakes arise, okay? So let's not forget those, all right? Now, can someone do a little role play with me? I'm going to make a statement, and if you could, I'd like someone to chime in and participate with active listening, okay? Now, I need you to log in to the intranet, and I need you to download the coursework for that continuing education. Once you complete it, save it via PDF and send it to the home office, the head of HR. After that, print out your certificate and fax that over to the training division. Okay? Got it? Okay. Sounds great. That is a perfect example of active listening. That was great paraphrasing on your part. Okay? Now, one of the other things that you can do to make sure that your audience is able to participate in active listening is notice their pace. You notice the pace of your team and learn that by probing and asking them to chime in and ask open-ended questions, okay? You want to summarize instruction to the point that they can chime in and seek clarity and paraphrase and make sure that they are following along with you. Now, keep in mind that while you're trying to elicit active listening and you're trying to elicit the participation of your team, keep in mind that new employees may not feel as comfortable because they're new and they may be embarrassed to share that they're not familiar with the material. So what you want to do is recognize that and be aware of that and say something to the effect of, hey, this information is very, very dense. It took me a while to learn it myself. Do not feel bad if this seems a little bit heavy or a little bit dense. Please feel free to chime in. The floor is open. Again, I myself took a few minutes to learn it, so no one feel bad about that. Ask questions, the floor is open. Do you see? Now, another thing that you can do is you can segment your information into smaller parts. Sometimes people are visual, sometimes people are, they learn by doing, and sometimes people learn by hearing things being repeated in ways that they can attach associations or symbols with. So be creative in how you phrase your information and how you share it and how you segment it, because you have different learners in the room. Okay? Now, moving on to persuasion. Before you enter into an actual persuasive or negotiation with someone, what you want to do is determine what outcome you want, okay? You want to be able to articulate that and be objective when you have the opportunity to share that, okay? What you also want to do is you want to keep in mind What are my limits when it comes to this negotiation? In other words, what is my best case scenario and what would be my worst case scenario? What are your concessions? Know the concessions that you're willing to offer, okay? And be prepared to utilize those during the negotiation so that you can promote a win-win environment. What you want to do is you want to promote a win-win environment so that no one ever feels like they are backed against the wall without any options to choose from. Okay? Another thing when thinking about concessions, be familiar with what interests the person you're negotiating with. You may be able to offer something of value to them. Okay? Now, what might be an example of that? Let's just say that you're on the other end of the negotiating table and you have a staff person who says, you know, I've been pulling a lot of shifts and during this holiday season I just haven't been able to spend a lot of time with my family and I really need to take some additional time off and I really need you to do this for me. Well, and as much as you'd like to, you don't have the ability to do it because you're understaffed. So giving this person additional time off probably is going to be out of the question. Well, how might you be able to offer a concession so that you don't seem so rigid? Well, you can compromise or offer something that is either slightly related or unrelated to the negotiations so that you can show support, show empathy, and show that you want to still encourage and maintain a healthy work relationship. So you might say something like this. You know, I really wish that I could give you the time off. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that, but I tell you what I could do. I could let you leave maybe 1 or 2 hours early, provided that you get everything done that you need to do within that time frame. That way you'll be able to get home to your family sooner during this holiday season. Hopefully that'll work out for you. I really do. See, that shows a level of empathy. It shows support. It shows that you're not rigid and you're doing what's called keeping the door open. Okay? So you never want to shut the door completely without any concessions or any opportunity. Always give something, even if it's not exactly what they ask for. Because again, the ultimate goal is to manage your relationships and to build effective relationships in your workplace. Okay? Now, if you come to a stopping point, sometimes it's okay to blatantly say, what will it take for us to move forward on this? Or what concerns you about not moving forward? You want to be assertive, but you also, again, want to genuinely show that you have a concern for their needs as well. Okay? Now, in everything that I have said, we've learned some very, very powerful tools here today. There's something that has not been mentioned, but out of everything that I've said, the most important thing that I would recommend is honesty. Regardless of whether you're negotiating or trying to persuade someone to do something you need them to do in your work environment, or if you're building a healthy relationship or trying to maintain one or even break one down, it is still important to be honest at all times, having relationships that are layered with integrity. And in every communication exchange that you get in, make sure that you are tactful because people are people and they do have feelings. And as managers, we need people and we need healthy relationships to have great business success. So I am Joyce Rice, auditioning for SkillPath training seminars.